Welcome to some new r/I do work here lady stories. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Dance Supervisor. The year is 2003 and the mighty Kmart still stands. A friend got me the job of being a highly touted utility associate, aka card pusher, for the summer. Easy job, working with other kids my age, goofing off while getting cards. However, the manager decided our supervisor would be a jerk from customer service. As soon as this was announced, she would order us around for no reason, making us less efficient. Luckily, she had duties inside the store and only bothered us half the time. A huge storm ripped through the area. Power outages, trees down, the whole shebang. I was off that day, but it was payday. Storm damage be damned, I'm getting my check. The way they were operating, without power, was customers would walk to the entrance, tell them what items they need, and an associate would run through the dark store, getting the items like some dangerous treasure hunt. I get there and walk through the doors. The manager was at the front, and at least she knew who I was and why I was there. I head to the customer service desk and hear that woman's voice, Mrs. All-Powerful Supervisor, behind me. Excuse me, sir? I keep walking. She's not talking to me surely. Sir, excuse me. Sir, stop. I turn to face her, thinking she realizes her mistake. You can't be in here. You'll have to wait outside to get your items. I stare at her in disbelief for a minute. No recognition on her face. No, I'm getting. You have to wait outside. The inside of the store is closed to customers. I work here. You are my supervisor. Are you kidding me? I'm getting my paycheck. Leave me alone. I get my check, leaving the store as she gives me a dead glare. Thankfully, I didn't stay long after the summer. The job started to be bad as the cool people left and I had to work with Troy, the 38-year-old Kmart lifer. The next story is called Not Your Server. This happened around 5 years ago while I was doing my baker's apprenticeship, and it happened where I had worked at the time. The bakery I worked at did not have set times for breaks. The boss simply called out our times one after the other. On top of that, bakers dressed differently than the servers and clerks. So the boss had just called out that it was my turn for a break. As we bakers always did, I went up front to grab something to eat and drink. I was waiting by the machine for my drink, just staring out the windows, when I hear an "Excuse me?" Since I was clearly not a server or clerk, also on my break, I ignored it. Not only that, I saw a server just out of the corner of my eye, hanging off to the side, talking to someone in the office. Naturally, I thought the customer was attempting to get her attention. After a minute, I hear another "Excuse me?" if a little more forceful this time. Again, off the clock and not someone that works up front, so I once again ignore it. Just as the machine is done making my drink and I go to grab it, the customer reaches over the counter and shoves a plate into my hand instead. "Excuse me, I've been calling for you." I'm in utter shock. This customer actually grabbed my hand and forced a used plate into it. "I need more butter." "I'm sorry?" "Butter. I want more." "I'm sorry, but I don't work." "Don't lie. You clearly work here since you are behind the counter. Now go get me more butter." "But I'm..." "Butter. Now." I was so shocked that the customer had actually reached out across the counter and grabbed my hand that I left my drink and went to the break room, where I knew another front worker was. She was surprised, thinking I had already finished my food when I told her what happened. Of course, she thought I was joking and laughed it off. But I told her the guy was still at the counter demanding more butter. After taking a peek, sure enough, he was huffing and puffing while waiting for his butter. She said she'll take care of it, so I can go grab my drink and get to my break. Of course, when I returned, without his plate or butter, he got upset. Not loudly, but it was visible on his face. "Where's my plate and butter?" "A server will be with you in a moment with your plate and butter, sir." "But I gave it to you to get me more butter." "Sir, not only am I on break, I don't work up front. I work as a baker." But you still work here." "Yes, as a baker. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll be going back to my break. My coworker will be here with your plate and extra butter shortly. Have a good day." At the end of my day, the coworker in question pulled me aside before I left to share her part of the situation. Apparently, the customer got upset with her when she returned with his plate and extra butter, but also couldn't believe I was actually a baker and not a server, because I'm a girl. It took her to pointing out what I was wearing. A white shirt and apron with baker pants to what she was wearing. A red shirt with black apron and pants. It did seem to sink into the customer's head that I was indeed a baker. Not only that, when a worker is on break, they are off the clock. The customer didn't seem to agree with her. Apparently, I shouldn't have ignored him and I should have just served him, whether I was on break or not. The third story is called Yes, I worked at a now out-of-business craft store. We got a lot of really stupid customers, usually middle-aged women that looked like a cross between a lost puppy and a headless chicken. So my boss asked me to organize and scan overstock items out on the sales floor. Overstock in our store was placed on a wall shelf over 10 feet in the air. I, in my bright company color t-shirt holding a large 5-pound scanner gun, am sitting atop an 11 feet standing ladder. I could see the whole store from up there. I was getting large boxes of items, sorting merch and reorganizing/filling products. After a few minutes of this, I hear a politely cleared throat. I had noticed this lady earlier out the corner of my eye staring at me from down the aisle, but chose not to acknowledge her. Again, I'm on top of an 11 feet ladder. I am not climbing down unless asked. Excuse me, do you work here? I should say that I have been working at the store for a couple of years now. I've heard this question asked at the dumbest moments so often that I had long since lost what little patience I had for those customers. I looked down at my shirt, looked at my giant scanner, the box of products in my lap, and then down at her. Yes? The next story is called "And Now Relax." Many years ago, when I was training as a paramedic, I worked as an EMT for an ambulance service, and we regularly went into the emergency room at a local hospital. One of the senior nursing staff there really had a downer on ambulance crews and made it very clear we were just truck drivers. Let's just say she was very tough to deal with, and this was in the very early days of paramedics being trained, and that was something she really didn't approve of. She was, however, an excellent clinician and had extensive knowledge of treating trauma cases, just not outside hospitals. Part of the training involved putting lines into real people and giving them real drugs. It also means we had to intubate real people. We did this under the tutelage of an anesthetist in our teaching hospital. I had finished my time practicing on rubber arms and on rubber heads and was on second man to the hospital for 10 weeks. One morning I was looking at a list of patients and the senior nurse was down on the list for surgery. Nothing earth-shattering, but a routine OP that needed her to be paralyzed and ventilated. I got the job of cannulation, induction and intubation. As she was wheeled into the anesthetic room, she saw me there and immediately asked what I was doing there. Why wasn't I out driving my truck? The anesthetist explained I was going to put the cannula in. What he didn't say was I was also going to induce her and intubate her. She was shocked into silence, and when I came up with the IV cannula, she just said, "You'd better do this right." I was a little nervous, but the cannula went in really well and I hooked up the IV. We popped her off to sleep and I administered the sucks and then intubated her. The OP was really smooth and off she went to recovery. As she started to come up, I took the ET tube out and left her with the recovery nurses. Later, when the anesthetic had worn off, I dropped by to say hello and got a response I didn't expect. She told me the line going in was the best cannulation she ever had, really gentle and no real pain from it. From then on, we had a great working relationship and her views on paramedics started to change to the point she got involved in the entire training program. The fifth story is called "Not Obvious Enough." This past fall, I worked at a Spirit Halloween somewhere in New England. My town isn't small, but it's definitely not super modern, and boy, do you see some strange people at a Spirit Halloween in a dying mall location. Throughout the season, as we approached Halloween, I'd acquired quite a few Halloween costumes to wear at work. I always had my bright purple apron over it and a big black radio hanging off the back. Almost every working day prior to Halloween, I was a clown, vampire, Arkham City Harley Quinn, or a Scream costume without a mask. While I was pleasantly surprised about the general kindness of customers walking the floors, I was equally surprised how many customers couldn't quite tell if I worked there. They would approach me like a scared animal, quietly asking if I worked there, while I'm stocking displays or aggressively moving packs around on the walls to fit more products out. I'd whip around and happily answer any questions they had. Half the time they had an expression of surprise that I actually did work there, while wearing a spirit apron paired with a big radio. Nothing negative ever really came out of it. I just found it amusing and funny how many customers probably thought I was a custom costumer ripping apart the spirit store. Although when in costume, I was very easy to spot, so customers with lots of questions and indecisiveness would always find me again to ask more questions about their costumes. Overall, a very fun experience. The last story is called "Are You Serious?" So, several years ago, I worked as a spirits consultant in a rather large regional liquor store. While the title may sound glamorous, apart from the occasional perk of being able to try a new whiskey while on the clock, I was basically a glorified cashier. I had just been moved to another store, following a rather catastrophic falling out with a coworker at my original store. The coworker had decided the best way to train me was to corner me in the warehouse and scream at me about how I was an utter failure and would never amount to anything in life. I had subsequently been moved to another location, roughly the same distance from my house. On my first day, I was quickly introduced to the store's management staff, as well as the floor crew covering everything else. It was midweek, ordering was done, and it was a slow store. So I spent the majority of my time rotating bottles in the aisles or up front by the cashiers. It was that kind of store. In truth, that first shift we'd had maybe 20 customers store-wide over 9 hours, hardly a rough shift, and there wasn't much to do. So my end of shift time rolls around, and I decided to grab a 12-pack with my also generous 10% employee discount and take it up to the register, manned by a cashier I've literally been talking to all day. And then she asked me for my ID. I'm in full company uniform, logo and all. We've been working together her entire shift. Bear in mind, this is a company that requires all employees to be 21 at a minimum. Even customers have to be 21 to step foot in the building and buy potato chips. There's no way I'm underage. I asked if she's serious. She reiterates that she isn't sure if I'm of age and is required to check. I stare at my coworker, who clearly isn't all there, and hand over an ID, which is where things get even more stupid. See, at the time, my company had a policy that if you were under 25, a manager had to approve that your ID wasn't fake. So my coworker, in her infinite wisdom, calls for a manager. The very same manager who had introduced me to the entire staff a few hours ago. He comes over, seemingly confused, and asks what the issue is. She replies, maybe slowly realizing the stupidity of the situation she herself has created. I can't be sure if he's 21. The manager glances between her, me, the 12-pack of course, her, me, the 12-pack again, her again, and back to me. Then he told me to just take the pack on the house and come back tomorrow. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but I never worked with her again. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.